this motion, right? Like Kelsey, give me high tens, bam, like there it is.
Right, that was it.
We don't do that.
Rory Vaden is a New York Times bestselling author, an internationally acclaimed keynote speaker, a leading expert on self-discipline, and the co-founder of Southwestern Consulting. His books have been translated into more than 10 languages, and he teaches audiences around the world how to become a master of self-discipline, action, goal setting, and achievement. As an entrepreneur, he co-founded an 8-figure global consulting practice with over 100 employees with clients like Wells Fargo and Land O'Lakes. He's been featured on CNN, Fox & Friends, Fast Company, Forbes, Inc., Success Magazine, and more. In addition to all of that, he is the host of a top 25 business news podcast. His newest book, Procrastinate on Purpose, 5 Permissions to Multiply Your Time, was the basis of his TED Talk, which now has over 1 million views. Obviously, I was excited to sit down with him in his Nashville, Tennessee home and ask him about building a personal brand, building an 8-figure business, and building a powerful speaker and author platform. Now, I want to go ahead. Again, you guys, we had audio problems. Our mics failed. And so then we had directional microphones, but those couldn't quite combat this massive thunderstorm that came through. We had a power outage. I mean, it was the perfect storm, both literally and figuratively. Don't let that deter you from listening to his amazing advice, especially if you want to build a speaker, author, or coaching platform.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Pursuit. I'm Kelsey Humphreys here with Rory Vaden. We are in his amazing new house. I feel like we came up into a tree house. It's so awesome. Thank you for letting us invade today.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are going to love him because not only is he a New York Times bestselling author, but he has a really interesting journey that I want to kind of dive into. I think people, especially those of you watching who are an aspiring speaker, aspiring author, the title of his book is Procrastinate on Purpose. So all of you guys watching who have a procrastination problem, you're going to love today's interview. Okay, I want to start at the beginning of your story.
All right.
Because you're working for Southwestern as like an independent consultant. Is that how you would call it?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I got recruited to work at, it's called Southwestern Advantage, and it's a summer program, and they work with a couple thousand students. And I ended up doing this actually, Kelsey, for 5 summers. So I knocked on doors, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, on straight commission, sort of running my own business in this program, and ended up making about over $200,000 in the 5 summers. And you know, I really got my start knocking on doors and dealing with rejection and getting slammed.
Yeah. But what's interesting is you were one of their top performers, and then I guess they asked you if you wanted. Well, first tell me, when you were going door to door, what were you pitching? What did you guys sell at those doors?
Yeah, so we sell these, and they're still around these days. They sell educational children's reference material, so books, and now it's an online tool called Southwestern Advantage, which helps parents help kids with homework. So it shows like the way that you learned how to do math, and then like the crazy way they teach it now, right? So it's kind of like a homework study guide. And you know, I never thought of myself as I never wanted to become a door-to-door salesperson. I kind of, you know, my mom sold Mary Kay Cosmetics, so I thought. You know, I like to tell people I was a perfectly normal child. I thought I would sell Mary Kay.
Why wouldn't you sell Mary Kay?
I ended up in this, and you know, one of the things that I really learned is something that we're working on right now, maybe behind the scenes, kind of is a concept that we refer to as servant selling. And I never liked sales per se, but they taught me that it's hard to be nervous when your heart's on service. And I think that has become a philosophy that, you know, our team at Southwestern Consulting, so now we have Southwestern Consulting, which we can talk about, is we try to teach people that a lot, that it's the more you can be focused on helping other people, whether that's in sales or leadership or public speaking or writing or podcasting, it's hard to be nervous when your heart's on service, and you know, that's what it's all about.
I love that analogy or that quote. Okay, so you're out of college then, you're one of their top performers. How do you go from being within the organization to running an entire branch of the organization?
Yeah, so I actually left Southwestern Advantage.
Okay.
One of the students that I had recruited, I was like a big recruiter, so I was a top salesperson, but not like the top. I really was known for recruiting large teams and leadership. And one of the students I recruited, his dad was an angel investor in a company out in Colorado. And so we all went and did that, and it was a startup like IT company. It grew really quickly. It's sold to McAfee, and
Wow.
it was a real successful venture. And so I was working, and I heard about this contest, and I'd always wanted to be a speaker, like from the time I was young. And I heard about this group called Toastmasters. And Toastmasters has a contest called the World Championship of Public Speaking. And at the time I'm like 22 years old going, who's going to listen to me about success in speaking? I'm like a kid, right? I'm fresh out of grad school, but I thought maybe if I could win this World Championship of Public Speaking, then maybe somebody that would give me the credibility that I needed. And so I entered the contest, and there's 25,000 contestants who compete from 90 different countries over like 9 months for a chance to make it to the top 10, which is the World Championship. And I made it there in 2006, my first year. Was in the top 10, and I lost. And then I went back the next year. I studied harder, got more coaching, did more mentoring and video courses, and I really looked. And then that was the year that I lost again, but I lost higher.
Second place.
Second place.
What? That's pretty amazing.
As Seinfeld would say, I was the number one loser.
Yeah.
Nobody lost ahead of me. But and then what happened was I was at an association meeting for the National Speakers Association a few weeks later, like that second year. And this gentleman, I'm not kidding you, this guy walks up to me and he goes, is this seat open? And it's a cafeteria, it's lunchtime. And he goes, is this seat open? I'm like, yeah, sure. And he goes, you're Roy Vaden, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I heard about, that you were like the young kid in the World Championship. And I said, yeah. I said, who are you? And he said, my name is Zig Ziglar.
You met Zig Ziglar.
I didn't just meet him. He introduced himself to me. We talked for a couple hours. He ended up mentoring me. I would go visit him. I got to go backstage, at some of the events where he was speaking in the big arenas, and like Barbara Bush is there, and Zig, and so I was mentored, over the course of the next couple of years, just kind of here and there, a few phone calls, a few meetings, and just became close with him and Tom and their whole family, and they're just great. Well, about that time, we were starting Southwestern Consulting, and so one of my business partners, Dustin, who actually was the all-time record holder for selling books door to door, he made over $100,000 in one summer. So he's the all-time big like master salesman.
Yeah.
So we talked about we should start a company teaching professionals, sales and leadership skills. And so we were doing that, and his dad knew some of the executives at Southwestern Advantage.
Okay.
And so Dustin was like, hey, I know the guys that are like the senior leaders there. And so we went to them and basically pitched the idea of a business model. And we started with a handful of us. It was me and Dustin, one of our other partners, Gary, and then Dustin's best friend from middle school, AJ, who I ended up marrying several years later. So
Okay.
that's a lot.
To cover.
That's a lot.
Let's pause and rewind a little bit. Okay, so before we get to Zig, I'm so jealous.
Coming up, don't miss his #1 piece of advice for achieving success. But first, I want to remind you that if you love these celebrity interviews, there are 3 ways you can support this show, this free show here on the internet, you guys. First, you can like this video and share it with your hustler and dreamer friends. Second, you can subscribe to the channel. And lastly, you can sign up to join Pursuit Nation. When you do, I will give you my top 10 success hacks for real life. How do we take all the tactics in these interviews with millionaires and celebrities and actually apply them to pursuing our own dream? That's what I break down in this PDF. Get your free copy at thepursuit.tv/top10.
So you went to college and you got your MBA. Would you advise aspiring speakers and authors and entrepreneurs now to do that?
To get their MBA?
Yeah, or I mean to finish college and get a master's in something?
I would say it depends. I don't think that there's any one clear path to success for every person. I think success is more about principles than it is about necessarily a specific path.
True.
I would say that a formal education can help. It can help you get credibility, which I needed in my case. It helps you learn things that are valuable.
Right.
It builds some of your network. Obviously, in my case, that was how I got introduced to Southwestern because they recruit on campuses. So that was a big part of a huge part of my journey. Doing it over again today, I probably would not go back. I don't know if I even would have gone to college because now I read so much and learn so much that most of the stuff that I'm teaching our clients, Southwestern Consulting is a coaching. We do one-on-one coaching. That's our core business, sales coaching and sales leadership coaching. And we now have 150 team members or so, and we're a healthy 8-figure business. And we coach salespeople and entrepreneurs and sales leaders, and most of the things that our clients need are not things that I learned in school. But the thing I would say about school is this, we have a little weight room downstairs, right? And there's a bench set, and if sometimes kids complain and they say, well, gosh, why do I need to go to school? Like, when am I going to use this in real life? But the way that I sort of think about it is like, if you do bench press, most people that work out do some sort of a bench press. Well, how often in any given day do we actually use this motion, right? Like Kelsey did me high tens, bam, like there it is.
Right, that was it.
We don't do that. We don't. Why do you do it? It's because it builds the muscle. And so I think, are you going to use the quadratic equation in your everyday life? Like, probably not. But it teaches you how to think, and it changes your thinking muscle. In fact, that's why we wrote this book, because this book changes radically the way people think about time. It's not so much about the tactics, it's about a completely different mindset and way of thinking about time, moving from managing time to multiplying time, and how do you actually create time. And so anyways, that's kind of...
I can't wait to dive into that, but I also wanted to ask you, if somebody lands a mentorship like that, I mean, whoa.
Like with the Zig Ziglar?
Yeah, like if, somebody finally gets someone from the top of their industry to actually, they meet them and they want to invest in them, how do you make the most out of a mentorship like that? What's your advice to the mentees?
Yeah, well, and I would say, I would classify Zig as one of my mentors. I was more directly mentored more frequently by a guy named Eric Chester, who was a Hall of Fame speaker, David Averin, and Mark Sanborn, who you may have, Mark is a really popular leadership speaker and author, and he's in the Hall of Fame also. And those guys invested on a much more regular basis.
Okay.
And several of the world champions of public speaking, from Toastmasters, Darren McCroy, and Ed Tate, and Mark Brown, and Craig Valentine, I was like big into studying and following those guys. But regardless of whether it's somebody like Zig that I might see maybe 5 or 6 times a year, or somebody that maybe I see more like once a month, the number one thing that you have to do as a mentee is execute on their advice. I remember sitting down with Eric, and I begged him to meet with me. And Eric played a big role because actually, when I was at Southwestern, Eric was a speaker they hired and he came in.
Okay.
And during his speech, he mentioned that he had a son at the University of Colorado Boulder. So after his speech, I went up to him and I said, one day my dream is to do what you do, but right now I need your son's phone number because he should come and sell books with me. And so I recruited his son, Zach, and Zach came and sold with us 2 summers. And basically the deal was like, hey, if you mentor Zach, I'll mentor you. And so when I finally met with Eric the first time, we're sitting at this coffee table, and he says, all right, Rory, I will tell you exactly how to be successful in this business if you promise to do everything I tell you. Wow. And I was like, deal, like I will do whatever. And he said to me, the difference between a good speaker and a great speaker is 1,000 presentations. I want you to go out and do 1,000 presentations. Once you have done 1,000 presentations, come back to me and I will give you step 2.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it was,
Wow.
and that's why I joined Toastmasters. So that's a piece of that story we
Got
kind
it.
of
Yes.
skipped over.
Okay.
But that's the thing, is just
Wow.
do it. You have to be coachable. And we're a coaching business, right? We
Right.
coach people for
Yeah.
a living. They pay us, and they so often, they want the advice, but they don't really want it.
Yeah.
They don't want to follow it.
Yeah, there's a difference. I think some people want advice and guidance, and other people want just somebody to be like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
You know, those are different things. Okay, so you mentioned 1,000 presentations. Maybe talk about how much you spoke for free before you finally started to get paid
Yeah.
for your, now amazing presentations, but you were just going.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I actually posted this on Instagram, I don't know, last week or a couple weeks ago. I was at this big event, and there's this 100-foot stage, and there's 1,000 people in the room, and they bought copies of Take the Stairs for everybody in the audience, and a bunch of them are getting into coaching with us, and it's this wonderful, wonderful experience. And I posted that everybody sees that picture and they go, oh, this is amazing. But what they never saw was that my first speech was to 2 people in the back of a Perkins restaurant on a Friday night at 9 p.m. at a Toastmasters meeting. And then I spoke 304 times for free before I ever got paid to do a real professional presentation.
Wow.
Now, part of that speaking was how we started Southwestern Consulting. So our business model, even today, is so the people who join our team, we help them become speakers.
Okay.
And what happens is they go speak for free. So they call on local companies, and they go speak for free as a way of providing value, and then they sell coaching on the back end. So if they do a good job, then people get into coaching and they get a residual commission off the coaching.
Got it.
And that's how our business model works. And so our coaches both sell and do the coaching, but the way they sell the coaching is by doing free presentations, and we sort of teach them how to do that in their local market. But the difference between a good speaker is 1,000 speeches, or Darren McCoy used to say, stage time, stage time, stage time. There is no shortcut to success, which is take the stairs, right? Take the stairs. Do the things that nobody else is willing to do. Do the things you should be doing, even when you don't feel like doing them. And if you can get yourself to do that, if you can get yourself to take the stairs, then you can do anything. You can do anything.
Okay, before we jump into some of those tactics, I did want to ask you about those meetings where you guys are 2 guys and you want to go in and join Southwestern Advantage, right?
Yeah.
So you're going in there, you're pitching to these big wigs. At that point, was it just the 2 of you, or did you have a small team?
Yeah, no, it was really just the 2 of us. And honestly, the very first meetings I wasn't even a part of because I wasn't in Nashville, so I was in Colorado. But we had a little kind of business plan put together, and and then we had several other meetings. I come to Nashville, so so we're pitching that in. So Southwestern Advantage, the summer company, the door-to-door thing, that is one company there's about 14 companies in the whole Southwestern family of companies. So Southwestern Consulting, our business that we helped start, we are one of 14. The summer program is another one.
Okay, so Southwestern, the umbrella.
Southwestern umbrella, and then you got Southwestern Advantage, Southwestern Publishing, Southwestern Real Estate, Southwestern Consulting, and then Great American, and Southwestern Investments, and we've got a company called Wild Tree. So we've got lots of.
So what's your advice for someone watching who either they think they could have a great partnership with a big organization like that, or maybe they're just pitching investors, pitching someone bigger and better to help them or guide them or join forces?
Right.
What's your advice on that?
Yeah, well, and they are investors. I mean,
Right.
Now we are they because of the way over time, but when you're pitching investors, or talking to business partners, you have to have a sales plan. You have to have a sales pipeline. Nothing happens until there is a sale. So everything else is just blah, 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 details. How are you going to sell? How are you going to get a customer? How are you going to get your first customer, then your first 100 customers, then your first 1,000 customers, and then how are you going to have 100 people that are selling it? Or how is it going to scale, right? It's very simple. Figure out how you're going to make one sale, and then figure out how you're going to multiply that. And everything, part of why, it's funny because we wrote a book on self-discipline and then a book on multiplying time, but really sales is what we do. But we think in terms of scale. We think in terms of multiplying, of repeatable, automated processes that that grow, and too many entrepreneurs like, oh, I have a passion. Investors don't care about your passion.
Nobody cares, guys.
And by the way, if you're pitching a book deal, it's the same thing. People go, I want to write a book because I got a passion or I have an idea. Publishers don't, frankly, that much give a crap about your passion. What they care about is, do you have a platform that can sell it? And a book proposal is not an outline for a book. It's a business plan for a book launch. And that is, there's a whole lesson there about how we got our first book deal, which is an hour-long interview by itself. But when we finally figured out that, a book proposal is a sales plan on paper. It's a business plan. It's not an outline for ideas. It's a business. And whether you're launching a book that's launching a business, or you're launching a business, or anybody who runs a household, right? It's like you're managing a business. There's moving pieces and parts. But you've got to, what is your path for sales? What is the fastest path to cash? How are you generating revenue? Everything else is just details.
Okay, so many great things in both books, but specifically Procrastinate on Purpose, you have the 5 permissions to multiply your time. And I know there's tons of solopreneurs out there and maybe small business owners, small teams, and they're thinking, yes, multiply my time is what I need. What do you think are the top few? I mean, you can cover all 5 if you want, but if you want to go on maybe the top 1 or 2 that you think they need to tackle and how to fix we all have issues. Like, we're just a bunch of people with a bunch of issues.
Sure.
Solopreneurs, I feel like a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
we're
that
still
way.
doing it all ourselves. Like, we're not making systems because we don't have a team yet, so our file names, like, you can never find anything. I mean, I may or may not be talking from experience. Now that I have team members, and I'm like, I'm a hot mess. So tell us, how do we fix these issues?
Well, it's not so much about the tactical. I mean, it is, but we can talk about that. But people always want the tactical, tell me what to do. What to do is not the important part. How to think is the important part. Practices change, right? Like, the technology changes, the tactical can change, but the principles don't change, and the way you think. So most of us think about time as trying to do things faster. We call that Era 1 time management thinking. It's about efficiency. How do I do things faster? It's fine to do things quickly, but efficiency is a point of diminishing returns as it relates to a strategy for time, which is very well evidenced by the fact that we all have these miniature computers.
Right.
We're moving faster than ever before. We have more technology, and yet we're more behind than ever before. We have more emails, more stuff on our to-do list, more things left unchecked at the end of the day. Well, that's why efficiency doesn't work. That's trying to manage time. Well, then, Era 2 time management thinking was about prioritizing time. And, I think Dr. Covey, who's brilliant, genius, never got a chance to meet him. But, he taught us about, importance and urgency, and that some tasks are more important than others. And he taught us how to prioritize. So prioritizing is a valuable skill in and of itself. The problem with prioritizing is that it does nothing inherently to create time. Prioritizing just rearranges the order of stuff. And so while taking item number 7 on your to-do list and bumping it to number 1 is valuable, it does nothing to create time to do everything else. And if you think about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think the book was published in 1989. And so it changed the world.
Right.
It radically changed the world. It's helped 25 million people, or however many books it sold. But think about how different the world is today from 1989. Right?
Yeah, a little different.
It's different. You didn't have email, you didn't have social media, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have any of that stuff. You have smartphones, Google, SEO, the world is radically different, and you can't solve today's time management challenges using yesterday's time management strategies. So what we noticed, mostly from working with our coaching clients, the top 1%ers, we've now coached over 8,000 people. We have about 2,000 active, I think, right now. And so our coaches are working one-on-one with these entrepreneurs, leaders, and salespeople. And the top 1%ers, we noticed, thought differently about time. They evolved. It wasn't that they don't work fast, and it's not that they don't prioritize. It's that they have evolved to a new type of thinking that we call multiplying time. Now you say, okay, how do you multiply time? That's impossible, right? We all have the same.
It's the dream.
It's the dream, right? And I know when I say multiply time, people probably think, oh, it's a superlative, or it's an exaggeration,
right.
or it's like some marketing hyperbole. But it's not that. We're talking literally, empirically multiply time. So how do you do it, right? So I'll tell you in one sentence. Okay, wake up. If you're asleep, pay attention. You need this part. The way that you multiply time is by giving yourself the emotional permission to spend time on things today that create more time tomorrow. We call it that's the significance calculation. You spend time on things today that give you more time tomorrow. It is true that there's nothing that we can do inside of one day to create more time.
Right.
We all have the same 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, or 86,400 seconds. But that's exactly the problem. Most of us wake up and we live in a paradigm of urgency. We only think about today. Most people think they're doing a good job when they ask themselves the question, what's the most important thing I can do today? That's not how multipliers think. Multipliers ask the question, what are the few things that I could do today that create more time tomorrow or more results tomorrow? And that significance calculation changes everything.
Yeah.
Because absent the significance calculation, we default to operating in a complete state of urgency. In fact, the neuroscience of your brain is actually working against you here. So let me give you a scenario. So let's say on any given workday, if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or a CEO of a big company, it doesn't matter. Like all of us have a certain portion of our time every day that is blocked with prearranged calendar scheduled activities.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we maybe have 1 or 2 hours open to work on stuff that is not impending deadline or already pre-scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have 2 hours open, we all have 1,000 items on our to-do list. We quickly realize there's no way I'm going to get all 1,000 things done. So what we default to doing is completing the most number of tasks we can get done. Because we know, like from BrainScan, that when you cross something off your to-do list or you hit delete, dopamine is released.
It's like a little party.
Right? It's like a little party. And you know this is true because some of you do this where you completed something that wasn't on your to-do list and then you add it to the to-do list so you can cross it off.
It's fantastic.
So that is because dopamine, and you're an addict, right? Like
we have a problem.
We have a problem. I say that kind of jokingly, but it's actually reflective of the same type of irrational behavior of someone who's addicted to a foreign substance. Multipliers have realized that success is not about the volume of tasks we complete, simply and only the significance of them. So while most people will unconsciously default to a world of urgency of figuring out what can I get done the quickest, how can I get the most done, multipliers would say, no, I'm going to intentionally and consciously choose to focus on only a few things, but they're going to be the things that create more time tomorrow than I have right now.
Okay, so let's say someone is a writer or a podcaster, or maybe they make videos or something. Would an example be like, okay, instead of I'm going to make 2 new videos today, they could say something like, I'm going to make a template for my videos? Would that be so that I could systemize it?
That would be an example of automate, of.
So you have automate, delegate.
It's eliminate, automate, delegate, concentrate, and then procrastinate on purpose, which is where the title of the book comes from.
Yeah.
But the best example of a solopreneur is actually delegate. Okay. And there's something that we use called the 30X rule. The 30X rule suggests that you should consider spending 30 times the amount of time it takes you to do a task once on training someone to do a task for you.
You know, the first time I heard you say that, I kind of cried a little bit.
Well, because as solopreneurs, it's a lot of time. So if you say, okay, it's a 5-minute task, right? And you go, the 30X rule suggests that you would spend 150 minutes, 30 times 5, training somebody to do the task. And that's where I lose a lot of people, because they go, Rory, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Why would I spend 150 minutes, 2.5 hours training somebody to do a task that I could just do myself in 5? That doesn't make any sense. And the answer is, you're right, it doesn't make sense unless you make the significance calculation. If you look at that task over 1 year instead of 1 day, and you go, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes a day on the task, 250 working days in a year, that means in a year I'm going to spend 1,250 minutes on the task. Now it looks very different. It's not, should I spend 150 minutes to save 5, it's should I spend 150 to save 1,250.
Yeah.
The answer is just as obvious as it was originally, but it's the complete opposite of what we once thought. The task hasn't changed, you haven't changed, the person you're delegating to hasn't changed. What's changed is your thinking. And the next level of results requires the next level of thinking. It's why the rich get richer. It's not because they're greedy, it's not because they think differently. And the way that wealthy people think about money is exactly the same way that multipliers think about time.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so I want to ask you a couple more questions as we wrap up, even though I have like a million things to ask you. But I wondered if you had any specific advice now that you're a new dad.
I am a new dad.
About
He's
multiplying
upstairs.
time as a dad, like multiplying time if you're a parent who's growing a business, if
Oh,
you're
what a tough question.
both running the business together, mom and dad, both
Which
doing
we
a lot
are.
of stuff. Yeah, so explain maybe some of your best tips.
For multiply. Well, I mean, my son's 12 weeks old, so I'm probably not the expert on
That's true.
parenting.
But you've probably coached a lot of business owners. that are
Sure, we
parents.
have. Well, and one thing I love, AJ said this, she said to me, she said, look, we're not trying to raise the next president or a Nobel laureate or an Olympic gold athlete, we're just trying to keep this thing alive.
Yeah, first 12 weeks, that's exactly right.
So I was like, okay, good, that's good. Like, but what I would say is, we mentioned this, I think in the Take the Stairs book, that what you don't get done at work today can be done tomorrow, but what you don't get done with your family is you can never get back. And so we do a tremendous amount of delegation as a way of creating more quality time, both as a couple and with our son. And so I think sometimes parents go, well, like, they feel guilty, which ties into procrastinating on purpose and unlimited. Like, we feel guilty, we feel obligated to do stuff. That's why that give yourself emotional permission. Like, I have to be the one to buy his diapers, and I have to be the one to make his food, and I have to be I have to be the one that changes every diaper, because it makes me feel like a good parent. Well, another way of thinking about that is actually somebody can help with that stuff, so that when I have time, we're sitting focused and we're playing.
Yeah.
And we're engaging, and we're snuggling, and we're teaching him, and those tasks are not the same as
Are we going to die? It is like the rainstorm of all rainstorms. Do you guys have tornadoes here? Like in Oklahoma, I'd be checking all the
not very
tornado
often.
Okay.
Well, especially there's all trees here, but we have a storm shelter in the basement.
Okay, good. So we're covered.
If it gets crazy, but we would start seeing the trees moving and stuff.
True. But I think that is a great point, and I also want to say I think some moms and dads, I think that we forget when people talk about that some people's love language is service.
Right.
And you're gonna have to deal. Like, I just had this thought as we were sitting here talking, like, if that's your love language to do like those kind of serve tasks, you might have to get over that a little bit and realize like what they need at that age. Like, sure, you feel like that's how you love to cook meals or whatever, but that's maybe not the best at the age that they are.
Well,
does that make sense?
No, so I would actually say if that's your love language, go ahead and do that, and then delegate something else, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be the one sweeping the floors or making the dinners or cleaning, like
Yeah,
cleaning the house.
maybe your favorite parts of service.
You pick your battles, right? The whole idea here is, and when you multiply time, the focus funnel, which we're not going to get to, but watch the TED Talk. There's the TED Talk, like you can see the TED Talk and see the focus funnel, or go to RoryVadenBlog.com and there's a whole free 1-hour webinar on it.
Awesome.
But the idea is to eliminate, automate, delegate, and procrastinate on the things that don't matter, right? Procrastinating on purpose is not about procrastinating. It's about putting off the insignificant things so that you can spend time on the significant things, on the things that multiply time, on the things that create results tomorrow, more results in time tomorrow than you have today. And so, again, I don't think it's about a tactical do this or do that. It's about a new way of thinking that empowers you to be intentional about doing the things finding out what you should be doing, and then doing it. And if you have a hard time doing it, that's what Take the Stairs is all about. The psychology of how to get yourself to do it once you know you should do that thing, but then you don't feel like it, which is a whole nother.
And he also has some other interviews specifically on that. So I'll link to those too if you want to dive in that topic. You can watch those other interviews. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, we already talked a lot about speaking, but I want your best, this is my last question, so your number one best piece of advice for coaches watching about becoming a better coach, because you've coached thousands of people, and I'm sure they want to know, okay, first of all, how is he managing that big of a coach load? Obviously not yourself, but how do you manage a big load of clients, and what's your advice for coaches to, I don't know, anything? What do you think the thing that you see coaches struggle with as a rock star coach that you are?
Interesting questions. I wasn't prepared for these questions.
Sorry.
This has been. So the first thing I would say is, if you are doing any type of sales coaching, or you have sales expertise or sales leadership coaching, you should look at joining our team, because we have a system. Because the number one, it ties to my number one piece of advice, which is the same thing that we would give the advice to any entrepreneur, which is, what is your system for getting clients? Right? Like, we all focus on, I want to change lives, and I have great content, and I have a good idea. But if you can't get clients, it makes no bloody difference.
Right.
So you got to have a system, and that's like you mentioned Southwest Consulting. Like, I am at this point, Dustin and AJ and our Dave Brown and our other senior partners, they're really the ones making it happen in our whole team. So now let's talk about becoming a better coach.
Yeah.
And I would tie it back to the thing we started all this with, which is, it's hard to be nervous when your heart's on service.
Yep.
You need to, in order to be a great coach, you have to first be a great student. You have to become rabid about learning. I consider one of my most important jobs in terms of helping to lead Southwestern Consulting to be a rabid learner, a devourer of information. In fact, what is coaching other than facilitating and distilling the knowledge down? They're paying you not for that 1 hour, they're paying you for the 100 hours you spent to be able to access the one key piece of information they need at that precise moment for their specific circumstance. So, the key to being a great teacher is to first be a great student, and that certainly applies to coaches.
Oh my gosh, so good. I know you guys probably want me to pick his brain way more, but we're out of time. So he is going to autograph these 2 books for us, and if you share this episode, you're entered to win. So if you want to dive into all the amazing stuff that we talked about today, you can do that. And then check out everything at RoryVaden.blog or just RoryVaden.com.
RoryVadenblog.com.
Okay.
So RoryVadenblog.com. We have our weekly podcast and articles, and there's actually a free 1-hour webinar there on multiplying time if they want
awesome. So you guys want to get that.
dive into that. And then, just the last thing that I would leave you with, Kelsey and everybody, is, people always ask, okay, Rory, so let's say I start doing all this discipline. Let's say I start prioritizing. Let's say I start multiplying time. Let's say I'm really focused on serving and selling, even though it requires me to overcome fear and have to do, then they say, well, how long do I have to do all that for? And the truth is that we never get to stop being disciplined. We never get to stop learning. We never get to stop striving. There's no invisible finish line of when you have figured out how to maximize your time to the fullest.
Yep.
And the reason why is because of something at Southwestern that we call the rent axiom. And the rent axiom says that success is never owned. Success is only rented, and the rent is due every day.
I love that quote.
That was an amazing conversation with Rory Vaden, but here are my top 5 keys to success for the rest of us when it comes to being a master at entrepreneurship, personal branding, and building a platform. The first thing we have to master is master sales. Remember, he said that the one thing you have to do, whether you want a book deal or you want funding or you want to grow your business, is to figure out how are you going to get your first customer? How are you going to get your first 10 customers, 100 customers? He said you have to figure out your fastest path to sales and generating revenue, and everything else is just details. Number 2, master your ego. Just like a lot of the successful people I talk to, you guys, they stay an avid learner. And he said when he got the opportunity to work with people like Zig Ziglar and Eric Chester, the number one thing he recommends is to actually execute on a mentor's advice and to stay coachable, which means you have to master your ego and the temptation to feel like you know it all already. Number 3, master your time. Obviously, this is what we talked about the most. I think it's super interesting. He talked about how we have more technology and more apps and more planners than ever before, and we just feel more behind. Make decisions today that are going to give you more time tomorrow. It's worth going back and listening to that portion again, you guys, if you didn't get it, because it is the key to how successful people think. Number 4, master yourself. Really, he said the key to doing anything is to, quote, take the stairs, which means do the things that nobody else is willing to do. Do the things you know you should be doing even when you don't feel like it. Make yourself do the hard stuff, and then you can do anything. And lastly, number 5, master serving. Guys, this comes up with all of my millionaire guests. At some point, it's no longer about them, and it's no longer about making money. It's about serving people, solving problems, changing lives. So if you want to achieve success, really figure out how you can better serve your audience. Now, I'd love to know, what was your favorite lesson from this interview? Leave a comment, and if you want to learn the juicy behind-the-scenes details, like what was he like in person, how did I land this interview, see bloopers and more, go to thepursuit.tv/Rory Vaden.
So good. Well, I know you guys are going to love just diving into more of his content. Thank you so much for everything you shared with us today. Like I said, there's so much we could keep covering because you are a master, but that's why you guys need to go read his blog. Thank you for letting us come to your home. We survived.
We survived.
We had a
the
power
thunderstorm.
outage, but we're still here. We didn't get washed
So
away.
good.
So thank you again.
High tens.
High tens.
Sam.
Even though we don't use those
Best
muscles.
press.
Yep. I'm Kelsey Humphreys here with Rory Vaden, and this has been The Pursuit.